Much has been written about how the Republican Party has shifted toward populism under President Donald Trump. But if the GOP truly wants to deliver on its promises to working-class Americans, it must be willing to raise taxes on the nation's wealthiest individuals, argues former Utah Senator Mitt Romney, one of the last prominent figures of the pre-Trump Republican era. In an opinion column published Friday in the New York Times, Romney warned that Social Security benefits could be cut by nearly 25% if the trust fund is depleted in fiscal year 2034. Such a reduction, he said, would amount to a dangerous fiscal cliff, requiring trillions of dollars to address and risking what he called an economic calamity. Traditionally, Democrats argue for higher taxes, while Republicans argue for lower spending, Romney wrote. But given the size of our national debt and how close we are to the cliff, we need both. Romney's call represents a notable shift for a former venture capitalist whose net worth has been estimated at up to $270 million. As the Republican presidential nominee in 2012, his tax plan was widely criticized for protecting wealthy Americans from paying higher taxes, the very approach he now challenges. He argued that recent spending cut efforts during President Trump's second term, including initiatives like the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, relied on an aggressive slash-and-burn strategy that ultimately failed. While some policymakers focus on closing tax loopholes, Romney said the scale of these provisions makes them more like caverns or caves. Romney pointed specifically to the step-up in basis rule, which allows capital gains to go untaxed at death. Under this provision, heirs pay no tax on gains accumulated during the original owner's lifetime. He illustrated this with a hypothetical example involving Elon Musk, who could buy Tesla stock for $1 billion and pass it on at a value of $500 billion, without any tax ever being paid on the $499 billion gain. This provision makes sense for helping families preserve farms, Romney wrote. But billionaires use it to avoid capital gains taxes altogether. He also criticized 1031 exchanges, which allow real estate investors to defer capital gains taxes by reinvesting in similar properties. Originally intended to stimulate development, Romney argued, these rules now primarily shield multi-billionaires. While tax cuts are often promoted as a way to stimulate growth and reduce debt, Romney said decades of relying on economic growth to solve fiscal problems have failed. Although he acknowledged that higher taxes can slow growth, he argued that the measures he proposes would have only a modest impact. I believe in free enterprise and in every American's right to pursue financial success, he wrote. But we've reached a point where any realistic solution requires the wealthiest Americans to contribute more. Doing so, he added, could help avert the coming fiscal crisis and reduce public anger as struggling graduates watch tax-advantaged billionaires cruise on 300-foot yachts. Romney's proposal drew sharp criticism from fellow Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee, whose spokesman said higher taxes would destroy jobs, investment, and economic growth. But the Utah Taxpayers Association, which usually opposes tax increases, urged lawmakers not to dismiss Romney's ideas outright, calling them worthy of consideration. Democrats in Utah welcomed Romney's stance. State Senator Nate Bluin said taxing the ultra-wealthy is one of the rare issues where figures as ideologically distant as Bernie Sanders and Mitt Romney now agree. Utah Democratic Party Chair Brian King echoed that view, saying fairness requires people to contribute according to their means. Reactions from other Utah Republicans were limited, with several declining or failing to respond to requests for comment.